Hello, everyone, and thank you for your interest in the Splunk Cloud Migration Assessment app. This is version 4.3.0 that we're looking at today. And the purpose of this application is to look at your Splunk BYOL environment, or bring your own license environment, and assess it automatically to see how well you're a fit for Splunk Cloud. This is the landing page that you see when you first open the app. You'll notice at the very top here we have instructions that you should read through so you can know what to expect from the application. The first table that you see here are our pre-flight checks. Read through this carefully as well and make sure that your total number of instances match up to what you expect to see, and they're defined on the right-hand side when they're green. And for anything that's red, go ahead and troubleshoot it and figure out what the problem is. Normally, we give you some advice here on how to resolve the issue, but the intention here is that we have visibility into your entire Splunk deployment so that we can assess the whole thing. By the way, you also want to install this application on the monitoring console, because the monitoring console is supposed to have access to the entire environment already. So if we continue down this setup page, you'll notice that we have optional updates for Splunk base information. We update this information every time we put a new release to the app, so you don't really need to run it. But if you want to ensure that you have the latest and greatest versions and Splunk Cloud vetting status for all apps, go ahead and click the update button here. But again, not necessary for all the time. Then select your customer name. It defaults to either your email address domain or to your computer name. Here, I'm just going to make it Happy Customer. And we want to be sure to choose a name that makes sense, right? If we have a separate enterprise security deployment, we may want to name it something like Happy Customer-ES, because sometimes you have Splunk islands or different instances of Splunk that don't talk to each other. So you'll have to run the application in those multiple spots, and then we can stitch together results at the end. And then down here, we just simply choose our license size. I'm going to grab some random numbers here. And then finally, we check our different compliance requirements. So if we want FedRAMP, you'll notice that we get encryption at rest automatically. We can switch it back. Different things happen for different cloud providers. They're located in different locations. So we just want to make sure that we know up front what it is you're expecting from Splunk Cloud. So here, how about I grab PCI and HIPAA, and we'll leave it like this. And then we click the checks button to take us to the checks window. By the way, you can follow the path up on top here with the breadcrumb trail as well. Here, we simply click start, and each one of the checks are going to run. Now, these checks run in series, so it's the lowest impact possible that we can put on your environment by only executing one search at a time. And you'll see as it runs, you can select a search. You can expand the window with this little button here, and you can have a nice view into what happened for each one of the checks. These don't take a long time to run if your environment is extremely healthy. You see on my laptop, because there's really not a lot going on, this is going to take less than 2 minutes to complete. In larger environments, we've seen them as big as 230 terabytes, and I've seen that complete in less than 45 minutes. But I've also seen 500 gig environments that weren't healthy that took several hours for the checks to complete. So depending on the health of your environment, this may be very quick for you, or you may need to let it run overnight and come back in the morning. Now, each one of these checks as they're run, and by the way, if you think one's taking too long, you can just open it up and search and see what happens here. But you'll notice there's a macro at the end of each one of these searches. What happens is that the search results are all written to underscore introspection, and that means that when we go to collect the data is going to be there. It doesn't have to live in memory or anything like that. So you can execute these searches independently outside of the app, and we'll just grab the latest run. And then when they complete, you have a pop-up that says they're complete, and we move on to the review. Now, in this review window, you're going to see all of the things that you selected. So over here, we see the license volumes that we've selected. And then down below here, we see a high-level review in an event browser of all the checks that ran. One thing I didn't talk about was this one flag that we had here about the data access. Because I have a Mac computer, we don't write to introspection for all of the stats. as we do for Linux and Windows deployments. So that's always going to be an error on my laptop, but it shouldn't be in your environment. And so if you're happy with what you see here, you can just move forward. Sometimes customers like to review the results here and go back and then tune their environment so that they're a little healthier and then rerun the checks. That's fine. Now we go on to the professional services scoping dashboard. And here we just select some standard questions. So is there a data migration required? Typically, yes. Is it a consolidation effort? No, I just have a single instance. We'll say that we have network capacity constraints, and maybe I want some of these random other services for PS to do. And of course, I want it right away. And then down here, I can say that I've got a single server with a single search head, and we get a nice little diagram here. Now, based on everything that we select in the professional services scoping dashboard, we're going to have an automatic recommendation on what it's going to look like to do the migration from a PS perspective. So this really just gauges the level of effort it's going to take professional services to do the migration. And this is custom because I grabbed some wild numbers. Let's just move forward with license planning. Here I'm going to tell what I like to do over the next 3 years. This doesn't have to be exact, but again, we want our team to understand what we're walking into. So I'll just grab a few random numbers here. And we want to know how you're going to grow. We want to make sure that we can support you. Splunk Cloud has become extremely robust, so it's not very common that we have customers that are too large for us anymore. But you never know. If you're in the several hundreds of terabytes, we would definitely want to know about that ahead of time. And then we move on to storage planning. And here you can see the trend in our license growth over the year, 3 years rather. So for storage planning, really the important things here is we want to know how much local storage you want. Very common to have, let's say, 13 months of local storage so that I can do investigations over a year. And then maybe I want to store that data for an additional 2 years on something that's less expensive. So this is DDAS is immediately searchable data, and DDAA is active archive and can be considered similar to offline storage that can be rehydrated into your Splunk Cloud stack if you need to search it, so it all happens automatically. And so now that we have that, we can move on to the data export. And this is a new part of version 4.3.0, and that's that we're now uploading data directly to Splunk, where before we have some export options down here, these legacy options, where you can export your, here, let's just do it, read and agree to the EULA. And down here, we can export the data, and it comes in a zip file. All this can be reviewed, by the way, from these dashboards linked here. This gives you a sample, or you can see the complete collection of data that we're sending. And as I go back here, and that all gets sent in this zip file. There's also a professional services scoping document that we can create here. This is a draft statement of work, and this is what our professional services team is going to use when they review your stack. But to upload the data to Splunk, all we simply need to do is put in our credentials, for Splunk.com. And not now. And then what's happening here is we're authenticating with Splunk, and we're sending the data to internal Splunk systems. So now this data is ready to be reviewed internally at Splunk by your sales team. And if you need to hand off that data manually, because let's say that you're not connected to the internet, you can shuffle it around by using these additional export options down at the bottom. And that's what we have today. There are additional tools inside the application that you can look at. Data egress calculator, which will help you calculate any kind of data egress charges you may run into if you're exporting data outside of a cloud provider. A forwarder topology sizing. This allows you to understand the size of your intermediate forwarding tier if you'd like to have one. And the internal review dashboard allows you to review all of the data that we've exported right here. And this looks much like it does inside of Splunk systems today. And then down here we also have troubleshooting in case you run into problems with any of the checks. And the health check items here will outline what each one of the checks are. If you have a problem with one, you can disable it. You can open it up here, copy and paste the search manually into a search window, and you can troubleshoot that way if you're having problems in your environment. But typically, these are problems with your environment that you should be able to resolve, just like any other search that you may troubleshoot. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your interest and your time, and happy Splunking.